Sports Grid College football today. It's Donnie Rightside and it's Joe Lisi. Joe Lisi preoccupied here, having some fun on the set at this point right now. We got another hour to go, Joe. Are you focused? I don't know if you're focused.
I don't know. I was watching.
Are you checked out?
I'm not checked out. I'm looking at the scene down there in Athens or Jacksonville, wherever they are.
That's neither.
It's
where they're
neither?
at. Yeah. So there you go. 0 for 2 on that. That sounds like Lisi's betting card today. How'd you do, Joe? 0 for 2 today.
Oh.
The muss, Joe. They're in the muss right now.
I couldn't tell. I didn't know. The kid was wearing a Georgia jersey.
Nah, hey, look, I think it was Utah, wasn't it? Not Georgia.
I thought it was
just red. You just think it's Georgia at this point. You
I
got Georgia on the mind here today.
Georgia's my best bet. So
my goodness!
I got the red and black on my brain today.
People are out here fading Georgia left and right. Now lines are moving at this point, but we got some big games to talk about, Joe, and also a lot of prop bets to go over today. And that starts with Vanderbilt and Texas, the favorite in this game. Texas minus 3.5 at most outlets right now, Joe, and a 46.5 total. Arch Manning back in play today, it looks like, as he was cleared late last night from his concussion. We'll start here, Joe. Good move or bad move for that?
Well, again, I mean, if you're Texas and he's healthy, you got to roll him out there. I mean, Caldwell has limited action, the backup Matthew Caldwell. And again, you know, this is an offense with Arch there that struggled in back-to-back weeks now against Miss State for 3 quarters and against Kentucky. This is a top 20 team that's going to bring it, especially from a physicality perspective. Can Arch Manning duplicate what he did last week, 346 and multiple, touchdowns, not just on the ground. He had one on the ground and through the air, but can this team play for 4 quarters? That's what I need to see. I reluctantly would lay it with Texas here, laying the 3.5. I don't love it. 46.5 to me, Donnie, is appealing. I would lean to the over just because I think you have playmakers on both sides of the ball. Stowers for the tight end for Vanderbilt, I think will be a key factor. We talked about the rushing attack of Vanderbilt. Every time Vandy rushes for over 200, undefeated this year by 4 touchdown margin. They've won those games 28.4 points per game. They're going to need to run the football. We'll see how it plays out, but I like Texas.
I do like Texas as well. And again, shopping to get the best possible pricing. You want that 3 as opposed to 3.5. It's as simple as you can certainly explain it. But now we take a look, Joe, some of the prop bets. It was hard this week to get prop bets on this game because we weren't sure if Arch Manning was going to play. And quite frankly, I'm very surprised that he was cleared. But we're used to that NFL landscape now where almost 90% of the time you get a concussion, you are not playing the next week. In college, you get cleared, he's going to play. Not much practice this week, which come into play. But if we look at the passing prop numbers here, Arch Manning listed at a 231.5 passing prop and Diego Pavia at a 173.5, Joe. If I give you the ability to take Arch Manning and or Pavia today with a total of an over or under, which way do you go?
I would probably take Arch again because in order to beat Vanderbilt, you need to stretch them over the top. Statistically, from a secondary perspective, they're holding opposing offenses to 220 per game. But if you look at the last 4 weeks of the regular season, they've allowed 261 to opposing quarterbacks. They went up against Nussmeier, Bo Pebrula. They went up against Ty Simpson, right? Their only losses on the road to Alabama. But if I'm Texas, I know I'm playing at home. I have the better wide receivers potentially. Ryan Wingo that dropped a bunch of passes against Miss State, right? Livingston and DeAndre Moore. I want to stretch Vanderbilt over the top, and I have to put the football in Arch Manning's hands. Easier said than done, Donnie. Again, I lean to Arch Manning. I was on his prop against Miss State. I'm not on it here, but if you're asking me which guy, it would be Arch Manning over Pavia passing.
Yeah, for me, looking at this game, I'm just going to keep it straight. Last 2 weeks, Joe, I've made it some decent money here on Vanderbilt, but I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going with today the Texas Longhorns to pull off the victory today, and it is a possibility that you look at Arch Manning can start to mount that comeback here on their season and play good football, maybe make a college football playoff. But also, Joe, the rushing is going to be a big part of this. The last 2 weeks, I went 1-1 in bets with Diego Pavia going over his rushing prop, which was identical, Joe, the past 2 weeks at 56.5. Today, it's coming out at 48.5. And I got to tell you, if I'm not liking Vanderbilt, I don't think they let him get out of the pocket, which means that Texas defense is going to be able to put the clamps on the Vanderbilt offense. I would take Diego Pavia under 48.5 rushing yards. And always keep in mind, little PSA that we like to talk about, hey, you can have 2 rushes for 40 yards, get sacked. Okay, you don't have 40 yards anymore. Why? Because they take the sack yardage out of it. I think he stays under that total today. But how do you feel about some of the other ground gainers, Joe? Alexander, Wisner, Manning, and or Pavia today?
Yeah, so Cedric Alexander would be outside of Pavia, the player to turn to if you're looking at Vanderbilt, 5.3 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns. Again, I'm betting it or potentially playing it out that if I think Texas is going to win, I'm going to take C.J. Baxter. I'm going to take the rushing attack of Texas. Now, Texas's strength defensively happens to be the front seven, holding opposing offenses to only 80 rushing yards per game and 2.4 yards per carry. So to your point, I think they can contain Pavia in the rushing attack and contain Alexander. Look to Baxter, look to the rushing attack. Even Arch Manning, potentially anytime touchdown RPO game, because we saw Missouri put some pressure on Vanderbilt. They rushed for 170 yards last week. We saw Ahmad Hardy get 97 on the ground prior to Prabula getting hurt. He had some success. That's the way I'm looking.
Somebody's got to catch passes today, Joe. Sherrill, Stowers, Richardson, Moore Jr., Wingo. Who is one of these guys you're spotting? And by the way, we're usually, 75 and a half, 80 yards. Not the case. The highest guy on the board, Joe, is Ryan Wingo at about 50 and a half yards today.
So Wingo, if you looked at his performance last week, I watched that whole game. He dropped 3 passes, had the big play to start the scoring to get them inside the red zone, but had critical drops in the second half of the game. DeAndre Moore is always a player that I'm looking to. Again, he's plus, I think, 230 for anytime touchdown. I do like DeAndre Moore a little bit bigger than Wingo, especially in red zone opportunities. We saw how good Vanderbilt is in red zone defense and third down defense. I think DeAndre Moore is the key to the passing attack for Texas today. But Stowers for Vanderbilt. Again, you look at Vanderbilt and you look in critical third downs. Who does Pavia turn to? It's Eli Stowers, the tight end. So keep an eye out for him.
Pater picks, Joe. Everybody likes a good touchdown market here. I'm sure somebody's going to score today. Quintravion Wisner here listed at a minus 115 price. He's the only guy you got to pay juice on at most outlets, Joe. Pavia, Alexander, Manning, and Wingo, all plus money numbers. If you had to pick maybe one or two of these guys that you think is going to score a touchdown, who are they?
Well, Vanderbilt's only given up 3 rushing touchdowns all year. And Texas struggled with Miss State in the red zone and the rushing attack. They got passing, no problem. C.J. Baxter was held down, but I like Baxter, DeAndre Moore, and I would take a shot again with Arch now that he's playing anytime touchdowns today. Moore has great value, so does C.J. Baxter.
Let me take a look here at the Texas squad itself, Joe. Obviously, opening day, it's like, all right, you're going to play a tough team in Ohio State. You lose 14-7. Get back together. 3 straight wins against, not great competition. Then you go up against Florida, which you should have beat. You lost that game 29-21. But 3 straight victories in the SEC. You knocked off Oklahoma, you knocked off Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Now you start to level up once again, Joe. You got Vanderbilt today, top 10. Georgia after that, at Georgia. Then Arkansas. Then you're going to end the season with number 3 right now, Joe, Texas A&M. I just look at the SEC schedule and say, I don't know what you want some of these coaches to do, but like Sark will be on the hot seat if he loses today. He's probably going to lose at least, if you say to yourself, Joe, even if he beats Vanderbilt, he's probably going to lose one of those final games there in the car, which gives them 3 losses. So 2 things. Is Sark out after this year? Or number 2, can you get a 3-loss SEC team in to the college football playoff?
It depends. It's possible. I think you can, depending upon who they're up against for an at-large berth potentially, right? We talk about style points. We talk about key victories, top 10 victories. Yep. And you look at Texas right now, their top 10 win potentially is against Oklahoma, but Oklahoma would have to potentially win out the rest of the way to help them. And that's always going to be, concerning. They do play Alabama, so that's potentially something that could play out. But I will say, when you look at Sark, he is on the hot seat because, again, you talk about the hype coming in, number 1 versus number 2, Ohio State. You talk about the hype of Arch Manning. You talk about getting to the college football playoff in back-to-back years, losing to Ohio State, the pressure and bullseyes on your back. What's the biggest difference for Texas this year? They're only averaging 138 rushing yards per game. Last year, $158. They need to run the football today. Last 4 games, Donnie, they've only averaged 76.2 rushing yards per game. They need to get to $150 to pull this game out. They need to really start coming into form. We'll see if they could do it. Hopefully, they carry the momentum from Starkville into Austin today. Not going to be easy.
Yeah, take a look, too, because they lose Ohio State. They lose to Florida here. And even beating Oklahoma, again, Mateer coming back, probably shouldn't have played in that game. You barely beat Kentucky. Mississippi State had you on the ropes. You beat them.
They haven't won an SEC game.
They need a big performance today at home against Vanderbilt. We'll see if they can gather that in. But we're going to head back over to Rocky Top next. Prop bets and more.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Jeanty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Jeanty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports Grid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire, Brian
Probably.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Clap, clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carton Show, only on Sports Grid.
Oklahoma and Tennessee on Rocky Top today. Should be a really good performance, or maybe a good quarterback performance show. That we're going to look at both of these guys today heading into this game. But if we look at the lines themselves, Tennessee, a -2.5-point favorite and a total of 55.5. I already said in hour number one, Joe, I like Tennessee. I like them at Rocky Top at home. But if you're just reading that line, that's an OU line right here, Joe.
I like Oklahoma. I told you, Georgia and Oklahoma are my two best bets of the day. I think Oklahoma wins the game outright. I'm buying back into Mateer, and I'm buying back into this defense to rebound in a big way. I understand Tennessee's dominant at home, 16-2, dating back to 2022 at home in Neyland Stadium. But I worry about their defense, Donnie. They're giving up 30 points per game. They allowed Kentucky to put up 30-plus on that team last week. Again, and Kentucky's nowhere near the experience of John Mateer, Blaylock, and the rushing attack. I think Mateer potentially could be a factor on the ground today, so I like Oklahoma to pull this game out.
Now let's get into some prop bets in this game, Joe, because there are two good quarterbacks here. And maybe we're waiting for John Mateer to get back to that top of the heap standing that we saw him climbing that mountain, Joe, possibly winning a Heisman. Probably not going to be the case this year, but Joey Aguilar comes in this game. His prop, 270.5 for passing. John Mateer, 235.5. We'll ask you the same question we just did previous, Joe. If you had a quarterback to take today for an over or an under in this game on passing yards, who is it?
It's Mateer. And again, I said rushing. I expect him to potentially utilize his legs. Hasn't done that as much coming back from the thumb injury. But with all the chips in the middle of the table and an elimination game, keep an eye out for Mateer on the ground. But if we're talking about just defenses, Tennessee's allowing 266 passing yards per game. On the flip side, even though Trinidad Chambliss abused them last week, statistically, you talk about Oklahoma's defense holding opposing offenses to 56% completion percentage, only 155 yards per game over the course of the regular season. So if we're saying, okay, which team or which defense is going to bounce back with a better effort, give me the team that's done it throughout the regular season in Oklahoma, and that's why I lean to Mateer to attack Tennessee over the top.
Player rushing yards today, because that's something, I like Diego Pavia with for a couple weeks in a row. John Mateer starting out the season, taking him to score anytime touchdown props made a lot of sense. But the rushing yards today, Joe, 32.5 for Mateer. Blaylock listed at 47.5. Bishop, the high man on the totem pole today, 64.5. And then you have Star Thomas at 24.5. Running backs that you're looking for in the props market today, Joe.
Yeah, so I bet Tennessee's rushing props against Alabama and Kentucky. Very difficult to find consistency. Bishop is the guy, if you want the big body between the tackles. He's always got the higher total. But they also incorporate Peyton Lewis in goal line situations and Star Thomas. Star Thomas is utilized more on third down. He's the guy, the Alvin Kamara type of running back that could catch it. He's also a home run hitter. But I can't buy in to Tennessee because they utilize so many backs. I can buy into Oklahoma and Blaylock. Short number. I still think Oklahoma can run the football. I think if Oklahoma wins this game, they're going to have to put up 400 total yards of offense. I don't know if it goes through the total, but I still think that Blaylock can eat against the front seven, only giving up 135 rushing yards per game.
Wide receivers, Joe, in this game. Somebody's got to catch some passes here. Browns are listed at 74.5, and it's Isaiah Sategna?
Yeah.
Did I get that correct? How about that? 74.5, too. By the way, 74.5, 74.5. Who's your guy then?
Ooh.
Come on.
Sategna, because, again, if you're looking at which quarterback needs to have more success, even though statistically Tennessee's throwing for more, Oklahoma has to throw. I mean, they're not the same offense when Mateer's not throwing for 250, 270, right? And you look at the 2 games back, coming back from injury, he hasn't gotten over 250 now in back-to-back weeks. That's always a cause of concern. So last week was a very short to intermediate passing attack because of the weather. I look for him to bounce back with a better effort. Again, the one receiver that I like for Oklahoma would be Deion Burks. I think he could
chop him up.
I think
Alt them.
I think anytime touchdown, I think, again, I would take a shot if you're asking.
Yeah.
What's Mateer right now? His total is light. What's he for 300 today?
Just bumping him up the list. I don't have that here listed.
I'll get it in the
Get
break.
it, alted, parlayed up, ready to go. But by the way, Joe's looking at Mateer all the way. You should be looking at Rocky Top, Joe. Rocky Top's winning this game
I don't
today.
like the side.
They are going to play that song until it goes to get you blue in the face today. First downs, touchdowns, big games, big sacks. Oh, Rocky Top. Rocky Top, Tennessee. Did you
I
ever
was
hear
at
live,
Rocky
though?
Top.
Oh, you were there. Yeah.
I was 97. Saw Deuce Staley in South Carolina with Anthony Wright play Peyton Manning in the rain. So
Who won?
22-7, Tennessee.
I saw Tennessee, Joe. They had Clausen on their team. They beat Miami in the Orange Bowl. I'm a soldier game. Remember that one? Tough scene for Miami.
That was Jabari Davis. They were 12.5-point dogs that day.
Bought those tickets there a couple weeks in advance. The week before, do you know who Miami lost to on the road?
Washington?
No.
What year?
Virginia Tech beat them. And then next week, Tennessee beat Miami, and all hell was breaking loose down there.
Marcus Vick, quarterback?
I don't know if it was Marcus Vick back then. Randall, maybe?
Oh, Brian Randall.
Could be. Look at that. Look at the old-timers here talking some old-time football right now. But, Joe, if we take a look at the touchdown prop market today, you're getting some good prices again. If we're expecting points in this game, the high man on the totem pole, Joe, Deshaun Bishop, -125. Torrey Blaylock, -110. Mateer, +100. And then a couple wide receivers in this game listed. Finding pay dirt in this game, Joe. Who is it?
I think it's Blaylock. Again, I took Mateer. I took Blaylock. Tennessee, if you want to bet a side on Tennessee, again, keep an eye out for Peyton Lewis because he's utilized in critical goal line situations. Number 2, he gets some burn. He got a lot of burn against Alabama with a must-win game against Oklahoma. Keep an eye out for him on the Tennessee side. Again, I can only look for Oklahoma on the props because that's the way I'm figuring this game plays out. But again, if you want an under-the-radar guy, I think Peyton Lewis could be that for Tennessee.
Oklahoma 6-2 on the season. They have a tough game today against Tennessee. Then they play Alabama. Then they play Missouri. Then they play LSU. I always, money is what motivates schools to make decisions, like leave the Big 12 and go into the SEC. Looks great on paper, but are we seeing and it's not fair to say sometimes the ruination of OU. Like Oklahoma every year was like, okay, we might lose to Texas or beat Texas. We'll throttle everybody else, Joe, and we'll be in the college football playoff every single year. That move to the SEC, and Brett Venables is there like, okay, what can I do? Is he going to end up getting fired just because there's nothing I can do with the schedule, Joe? I'm going to lose 3 games every year because this is ridiculous.
Well, again, I think if he goes 10-3 or 10-2, I think he stays.
Hasn't shown it yet, though.
No,
really?
he stepped up a couple years ago. I think the bottom line is this. What could he do defensively? If this team plays lights out and he's got a top 10 defense and their loss came when Mateer got hurt against Texas and he came back. I mean, they only lost by 8 points to Ole Miss. Depends upon how much they lose today.
I mean, theoretically, Joe, you can lose to Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. A 5-game winning streak to end the season. Is getting canned at that point?
Yeah.
He is?
You can't do that.
Buy in, Joe. Give him a couple years.
6.
Let him get his recruits in there, he's going to tell you at this point. Come on, man. Give him a break at this point.
Come on.
Penn State, Penn State, OSU. They're looking for a head coach. Maybe it might be Venables, Joe.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. You know, it's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports Grid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire? Brian
Probably.
Kelly.
Yeah,
Clap, clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on Sports Grid.
Sports Grid College Football Today, Saturday. We're roughly, Joe, a half hour away from kickoff. Some of those big 12 o'clock games. One of those is in the Horseshoe. Do you know what it is today, Joe? It's Penn State and it's Ohio State. Before the season, you might have been looking at this game, Joe, as a possibility of number 1 versus number 2, and can James Franklin win a big ball game? One thing we know, James Franklin never wins a big ball game. James Franklin's not even coaching in this ball game today. Ohio State, one of the best defenses we've seen in modern decade, I could say, 10, 15 years at least? They're going to try to clamp down on Penn State today, Joe, but you look at that line. It's 17.5 across the board. It was as high as 20.5 to 21 earlier in the week. People buying into Penn State on game day, Joe, with a low total of 45.5. Before I let you answer, you look at Penn State's schedule. A couple wins to start the season. The losses haven't been bad. Now, you say, well, the UCLA loss was bad, but not scoreboard-wise, Joe. They've hung around in just about every game they have unless they've won it. Does that make a difference today or no?
No, I think scheme makes a difference. Talent makes a difference. Intensity makes a difference. They went toe-to-toe with Iowa, right?
Yeah.
Very difficult place to play. They wound up covering that game and losing it by 1. Was that their Super Bowl? I always say it takes so much for these guys and kids to get up week to week to week that looked like a must-win game at the start of the year might not even matter to these kids anymore because they're checked out and want to know what their best option is for the NFL draft or another program. So that is where you really, especially now over the last 2 or 3 years, we always talked about kids checking out for bowl games. Kids checking out regular season, thinking about their next opportunity because the coach isn't there. And again, if this team was, had 1 loss with an interim coach, different story. Donnie, they're terrible this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the expectation was to make it to a college football playoff. They were, in some polls, number 2 overall, number 3 overall. They're under 500 right now.
Now, tell me about some of these players in this game, Joe, because we know the Ohio State players, right? You're going to take a look at Julian Sayin. They got great wide receivers and a great defense. The prop passing number for Sayin today is 253.5. Ethan Grunkenmeyer, 131.5. For people that have only watched Penn State with Drew Aller and have really said, you know what, since they fired their coach, I'm out on it, but I will watch this game. What are you getting from Ethan Grunkenmeyer today?
I mean, again, he's a quarterback that he's not that mobile. So, again, he can utilize a couple of RPOs in the game, but he's not going to pull it and tuck it and run like some of the other quarterbacks that we've seen in college football. Again, what you see is what you get. Short to intermediate passes. He's only thrown for 198 yards, 59% completion percentage, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. He can put, if they protect him, he could potentially attack that secondary. But you're going up against the best secondary potentially in all of college football statistically. If they shut down Damon Williams and they shut down Lindsey from Minnesota that are much better quarterbacks than Grunkenmeyer, what do you expect out of Penn State today? Is it going to be a lower scoring game, or is Ohio State going to get the total on their own? If we're looking props, the 256, you would say, definitely Julian Sayin, because he's averaging 278 and this offense is coming to form, but he might not play in the fourth quarter. That's the problem, because I really think Ohio State blasts them today, and at the end of the day, you might only get 3 quarters of performance. Grunkenmeyer for Penn State needs to get through his total in order for Penn State just to sustain drives and score points.
And also, Joe, we talked about to open the show, Ohio State's defense. Not like, hey, man, they're getting in close game. Blowout, you can score late. You don't score on them in the first quarter, second quarter, third, or the fourth quarter. One team has gotten the double digits on Ohio State this year. So let me ask you this fun question. Passing touchdowns for these quarterbacks. Sayin is over 1.5 at a minus 205. Leave him on the sideline. Grunkenmeyer, over a half, which means Joe has to throw 1 touchdown. Usually we see this at minus 170, minus 210. Joe, he's minus 114 to throw 1 touchdown pass today.
It seems, Donnie, it seems appealing, right? But let me throw then the Ohio State statistics at you.
Hit me.
Number 1 third down defense, 21%. They hold opposing
Not moving the
offense.
chains
That's
on.
every 2 of 10 third downs, they're getting off the field. 8 more opportunities for Ohio State to score. They're only giving up 135 passing yards per game. And I know it's the Big Ten, but they went up against Texas and Orange. We know what Texas.
7.
But what I'm saying is 6 months of preparation for Steve Sarkisian and that team, and they struggled. This is an offense that they shake when they have to throw for 2 straight passes in a row. Penn State. I just, again, I would take a shot because they're going to be playing from behind. But again, they might not score in this game.
Ground game, Joe. Katron Allen. I took him over 49.5. It's
I took him for an anytime touchdown.
It's the only chance that they have to survive in this football game, which he has to have success, which having success against Ohio State's defense is really not something a lot of teams had. Bo Jackson, 57.5. So talking about the running backs, touchdown props, rushing props, what do you got?
So I took Katron Allen, is a huge number, plus 190 anytime. I took Donaldson for the bigger back. And I know Bo Jackson, but he's minus 250 to score. Donaldson's at least plus 126. I do lean to Donaldson yardage-wise. He's the more physical back.
Nobody winning the Heisman from Penn State, but maybe some opportunities for somebody from Ohio State to win the Heisman Trophy. And you might say, Donnie, why are you talking Heisman Trophy? We got a nice little segment coming up here. Joe's going to give you some options. DRS is going to give you some options. And
you see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Jeanty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Jeanty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports Grid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire? Brian
Probably.
And Kelly.
Yeah,
Clap, clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carton Show. Only on Sports Grid.
Heisman trophies. Did you know, Joe? 1996 to 1999. I finished 8th in the Heisman Trophy.
You and Gordy Lockbaum?
Holy Cross is finest there.
Paul Palmer?
Yeah, I love the Heisman Trophy, and it's sort of that. Used to be an award that running backs can win. It more looks like it's quarterback awards at this point right now. But Joe and I wanted to have some fun during this segment and say, all right, like we're past the midway point of the season with big games still left to play. Like who would be some of those guys that you think can win the Heisman? And not just saying like, of course, we're just going to take the top guy, Fernando Mendoza, and let it run wild, Joe. So I'm going to start with you. Take a look at the Heisman watch list for you. Who are the 3 guys that you think people should be watching?
Well, Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top 3 when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation. Jonathan Taylor was the last running back top 3. When you just think about it, he rushed for 2,000 yards. If Love has that type of duplication and productivity, he could be there. Haynes King, when you just look at the big games for Georgia Tech, he has stepped up and just dominated, and then Diego Pavia. But the one guy that I like, and I think we switched them up. I figured that it was Gunnar Stockton for Georgia. That was the guy for me. Gunnar Stockton, that when you look at the big games for Georgia down the stretch, Stockton has stepped up. Over 300 yards against Ole Miss. 288 against Tennessee. If he dominates, let's say, Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech, that potentially could be undefeated at the end of the regular season. Gunnar Stockton's going to be all of a sudden catapulted. Why? Because Georgia potentially only has 1 loss and could be the best team potentially in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm interested because, again, 2 losses sometimes with Jeremiah Love. They don't play too many good teams down the stretch. And we always talk about, Joe, you want your Heisman moment, like biggest game, biggest ballpark. You always go back to like, oh, Manziel beat Alabama in Alabama. Boom. There's this Heisman moment. You move on at that point here. Desmond Howard returning a punt, doing the Heisman pose. That's his Heisman moment. But for me, as you try to track it down, like I do think Love is an outside chance depending on what he does down the stretch. But if I'm looking more at who can make that difference, like Diego Pavia, week after week stepping up and saying, I got to beat a team where that spread is 2.5, 3.5. I'm home. I'm on the road. It's in the SEC. If he wins today at Texas, he gets that extra jump, even though, Joe, I actually don't think they win that football game. But if they do, he's really going to take a blast up there.
Yeah, it's team success.
Yeah.
It's not even
Gotta have that
productivity.
marriage.
He only had 129 passing yards, and Missouri contained him. But they wouldn't be here without him, right? I mean, I know the defense is stepping up for Vanderbilt, but he is the leader of that offense. He's the blue-collar player that you transferred in, and all of a sudden now you're not just getting to bowls. You're potentially getting to a college football playoff. So I love that. I guess the one player that I'll just throw out there, Donnie, and we've talked about him, but not really. Wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, if all of a sudden now – what if he like today puts up 200 and then
how does he beat out his own teammate quarterback that's throwing the football?
Because
does
I
have to
think
be
he's
250 and he gets 200 yards up?
But I'm saying, what if he's got more of a name recognition than Julian Say in the first-year starter, right? I mean, it's not like Julian Sain's putting up numbers, but if you asked 100 people, they know Jeremiah Smith more than the starting quarterback. And I think that, what do you remember in the national championship game? You remember Jeremiah Smith catching the football. I think, the story continues. And we talk about Devontae Smith when he won it in 2020, and his ability to just step up from November straight through December, where if Jeremiah Smith puts up like mind-boggling numbers, he's going to be there. He's like coasting right now. Don't you feel that?
By the way, you know what? It's interesting, too, because there's so many options. And you see one guy on my card. It's Haynes King, quarterback here for Georgia Tech. You say, well, I don't really know about the statistics. Can he do that? When we talk about Joe having team success, just beat Syracuse, which everybody beats Syracuse. Not what we want to focus on. NC State, not good. Boston College, terrible. Pitt is decent, but you end the season with number 5 Georgia. And let's just say Georgia runs the rest of the table here in the SEC. Haynes King gets that victory here. He's 30-1 as a price point right now to win the Heisman. That could be something if other guys falter where he can really jump up in that big spot.
Donnie, they took him to 8 overtimes last year in Athens,
8
right?
OTs.
So it's also a progression. It's from last year. It's like, I remember that guy. Now all of a sudden he beats Georgia last game of the regular season, and oh, by the way, they're undefeated in the regular season and go into an ACC championship. All he does is put up basically 300 yards of total offense a week, 200 through the air, another 100 on the ground. I mean, they have a dynamic offense, but without Haynes King at the helm, Georgia Tech would not be undefeated. So in huge matchups, Haynes King has stepped up. And he's going to be there. Again, I want to see how they play against NC State today. But if they're 9-0 and then 11-0 heading at home, and that's a home game for Georgia Tech, I mean, he could be there.
Let's put this right into perspective, too, because I know you have Gunnar Stockton here as an option. They're going to play today. They're going to take on the University of Florida in SEC tilt 3:30 in the afternoon. Neutral site game. They played each and every year in Jacksonville. Gunnar Stockton is a 220.5 prop bet in this game for passing yards. DJ Lagway, Joe, 243.5. So have some fun with the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. 220, Joe, for Gunnar Stockton today.
Yeah,
Biting?
No, I'm going under on both.
Whoa.
How about this? Under
defense.
I think I do.
Yeah.
I think it's all Georgia. You look at this game last year. Nate Frazier had a breakout performance, 82 rushing yards and a touchdown. You look at the physicality of Georgia's rushing attack, 221 against Ole Miss. They're averaging $190 on the ground. I do feel that Gunnar Stockton could be in the area of about 200, 2 or 3 touchdowns maybe, but it's the rushing attack that does take over. You look at just Florida losses this year, LSU, one of their better rushing performances. You look at Miami being able to pound the rock. The losses for Florida have come because their front seven is broken down. I know they get an extra week of prep, but if they're checked out, could be the Georgia rushing attack today. But that doesn't mean Stockton, again, doesn't perform. He throws for more touchdowns, let's say, than yards today.
How about the touchdown market here, Joe, between University of Georgia and Florida in this one? You got Ball -140, Gunnar Stockton -130, then Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, and Zachariah Branch on the other side. There are going to be touchdowns scored in this game, Joe. Who gets them?
Well, I'm shocked that Ball leads all the touchdown scores for Florida, and I understand why. He's a versatile running back for the Gators, but you look at Bowens, he's got a great number, I believe, at +130. I took a shot on +125 with Nate Frazier, so I think Frazier's the guy. Just go back to last year. He's starting to get more involved in the offense. They took him out of the offense early in the year when he fumbled, so against Alabama. He's back involved in the offense. You look at the yardage total, it's sort of evened out between Bowens and Nate Frazier. I also like Zachariah Branch. He's the home run hitter coming from USC. He's got great value in the passing attack. I know everybody's looking at Delp and Lucky Lawson Lucky for Georgia, and obviously Gunnar Stockton's an option, but I think Zachariah Branch is the big hitter today.
Let's get a little bit of action here, Joe. Miami and SMU. Why? We're 20 minutes away from kickoff there at SMU. Miami is a double-digit favorite, 10.5 points to 10, depending on where you're shopping at here. Points are expected in this game, but if we look at the props market here, Joe, passing yards, Kevin Jennings, 230.5, and you take a look at Carson Beck, 255.5. Overs, unders, quarterbacks that you might be looking at in this game.
I want to take a shot on Jennings for 300
Oh,
today.
come on. You're just a hater.
I'm not kidding
You
you.
just hate playing
Why?
8 spot.
Think about this. Miller Moss and Bell abused that secondary early on for Miami. And again, I don't think that SMU is going to line up and look to get into a blue-collar game against Miami the way they did against Wake Forest. Credit Dickert and Wake Forest for really playing a lower-scoring game. But again, if I'm Rhett Lashley and he just got signed to an extension, I think 7 years he'll be there in Dallas, so he's not going anywhere. You know, when SMU is on, they're scoring points, and Kevin Jennings throwing for 300 plus. Give me Kevin Jennings lights out today. That total of 50.5 could come in today.
Somebody's got to catch passes, Joe. Malachi Tony, love the guy, 81.5 for his receiving yards. Jordan Hudson and Romello Brinson for SMU, 55.5 and 43.5 respectively. So which one of those SMU guys figures going to lead the way if we're getting some good passing yards?
It would be Brinson. I think he's the home run hitter, multiple touchdowns. I like his total. I will say C.J. Daniels is appealing to me. Anytime touchdown over Malachi Tony. Tony, I think, was even money at plus 100. Daniels has a little bit better value. I think plus 130 with plus 140.
Player rushing yards in this game. Miami, you know they want to start an attack on the ground and be physical with that offensive line. Joe, Mark Fletcher Jr., quickly, over 74.5, over or under in this game for you?
To win, I think he's got to get through that total, but it's going to be very difficult against that front seven.
Big games, big props. We'll keep rolling along right here on Sports Grid College Football today. It's Donnie and Joe.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. You know, it's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports Grid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does he
They'll be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire, Brian
probably.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Clap,
why,
clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carton Show, only on Sports Grid.
Right back in, Joe. Woo! Did you miss us here? Did you go for a walk? Did you go for a stroll around the community here, Joe? Trying to get fired up and get ready to go?
Looking at the reports around college football to see if we can get a pulse.
Now, what do you got? What's the feeling for today's games for you today?
I like a lot of the
high?
3 and 4 o'clock games. I'm involved early on in the 12 noon with SMU and the prop market with the Mustangs. But again, I'm going to jump in. I think from an in-game perspective on a lot of these games, I am curious about the Texas game.
Yep.
We saw Arch Manning in warm-ups. He looks good. What is the mindset of Texas? I think total-wise, I'll tell you, at 46.5, this gets under 40 early.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in on the total because, again, I understand both teams and play defense, but in this type of game, you still have to score points, and there's still OT on the horizon potentially.
Yeah, we're going to get to that game and sort of wound up. And again, we're taking a look at some of these games that kick off at 12 o'clock. I love that, Joe. We don't have to wait till 3:30, 7:30 for a lot of these big games to try to play and have some fun with Joe. But one of those games that we take a look at in the Big 12, Texas Tech and Kansas State, 7.5-point favorite for the road team today. That's Texas Tech, Joe, and that 51.5 that's listed. So obviously, handicapping the game and breaking it down, we're trying to take more of a prop perspective in this game. So the passing yards, Joe, Avery Johnson, Kansas State, Baron Morton here for Texas Tech, 256.5, 207.5, Joe. Who are you looking at maybe from a quarterback prop perspective?
Well, I would take Baron Morton through his passing prop. I think Texas Tech, and I understand that they're a run-heavy offense and physicality with the offensive line, but Baron Morton potentially has to break through and challenge that defense over Kansas State over the top. Why? because Kansas State struggles typically when they play from behind, right? Avery Johnson's a good quarterback. He's not elite. He's a better runner than he is passer. Do like Avery Johnson, anytime touchdown and rushing prop. But if we're talking passing totals only, it's got to be Morton. But again, I'm a little concerned coming back from a long hiatus. You know, is there any ring rust and potentially the quarterback to wide receiver relationship timing-wise is always a cause of concern.
Some of those fun markets I like to take a look at, Joe, is taking a look at the totality of the offense themselves. Kansas State total yards in this game, Joe, 350.5. Texas Tech, 411.5. If you had one way to go on total yards to the over or the under, which way would you lean in this one?
I mean, you would say that it would have to be K-State, but again, you know, the reason why I say over 350 for K-State, that means they're having a balanced attack.
Yeah.
They're throwing the football, they're running the football. They're certainly not going to put up, I don't think, 280 on that front seven, led by David Bailey. That's very dominant in run support, holding opposing offenses well under 4 yards per carry. The problem is going to be third downs. Can Avery Johnson win on third down? So, again, when we look at yardage-wise, I would still lean to Texas Tech 411, which even though it's under their potential total, right, they love to throw it, they love to run it. Kansas State in the Little Apple that has dominated the series 8 straight is going to look to slow down tempo, but I still think Texas Tech gets there.
What is it, Snyder Family Stadium, Snyder Family
Bill
Field?
Snyder.
Yeah, Bill Snyder.
He gave me a little. It was.
He blew you off?
No, it was 20. I think it was 2018, 2019 in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask him a question. I forgot what it was. I think I was bringing up Josh Scobie and Rock Cartwright, 2 favorite running, right? And he
Jordy
looked at me
Nelson?
like I didn't know college football. And ever since then, I rooted against K-State.
Just thought some Goomba over there. Trying to
Yeah,
get
like,
questions in. Yeah, tough
exactly.
scene.
He let the hair, they'll let the hair fool you.
Tough scene. Player passing props, Joe, if we take a look at Indiana and the University of Maryland today. Why? Because Fernando Mendoza, if you stop today and say take the straw poll, he could be your Heisman Trophy winner at this point. He's listed at 246.5. Malik Washington at 205.5. Now, you're loving a little Maryland action today, which means you're probably looking at Malik going, that's my guy.
I am, 205. How about Maryland contains Fernando Mendoza under his total today, and he gets dropped out of the race? Wouldn't that be something?
No, it wouldn't be.
I
It's not
like
gonna
Maryland plus the 21.5 today.
Look at all these pass catchers, too. Omar Cooper Jr., 70.5. Elijah Surratt, 76.5. We're talking about 2 Indiana guys, Joe. Looks like they might light up that scoreboard today. Come on.
Yeah, Hemby for Indiana as well. When you look at it, I think here's the thing: if you're Maryland, even though Malik Washington is a great quarterback and as a freshman he's lighting it up, you don't want to have to go toe-to-toe with Indiana in this game. You do want to run a little bit of tempo, sustain drives, keep Indiana on the sidelines. I keep telling you, the 3 losses for Maryland this year have only been by a total of 10 points, 3.3 points per game. Their defenses contain more explosive offenses or just similar type of offenses like DeMond Williams in Washington. I mean, they held them to 20 points. Can you get that type of effort today? You're going to have to, but I still like Maryland plus the points.
How about Cincinnati, Utah, Joe? We take a look at some of the passers in this game. Devin Dampier, one of those guys that some people thought might be an under-the-ground type guy or under-the-wire, I should say, type guy to win the Heisman Trophy. Brandon Sorsby, only 207.5 for him, Joe.
You like to
Dampier,
call him
183. Scoresby, baby. He's going to score today. Is he scoring the overs? Which quarterback do you think has a better day?
I think Sorsby.
There you go.
You got me at
Scoresby.
Scoresby. I think Cincinnati, again, without their top running back in the lineup, I still think they utilize the rushing attack, but maybe not as much. And again, typically, if we're looking at Utah, they struggle with speed teams. Now, I know you don't think of Cincinnati as a speed team, but they have a quarterback that could stretch you over the top. And again, I'm still not sold on Dampier in terms of being this elite passer. He's a better runner than he is a passer, even though Utah's dominant at home. My best bet in this matchup, Donnie, is the over 55.5. I think we blow through this.
Now, that means people are going to be scoring touchdowns, Joe. If we take a look at the touchdown scoring market, Dampier not getting any discounts here. Minus 220 price for him listed. Parker at minus 160. Ryan Davis at minus 115. So 3 guys that you're paying juice on. The rest are positive, or should I say plus money here, Joe. Anybody that you're looking at in Cincinnati and Utah to possibly find pay dirt today for you?
I mean, Sorsby's mobile, too. I think he's got great value. I mean, you just look at it and just I think that's a potential for him to hit pay dirt. I don't like – I've been burned a little bit with Cincinnati with the touchdown market. I just like the total straight up. So, again, Sorsby would be my guy, especially without their top running back. He's mobile enough, especially in terms of RPO types of matchups inside the red zone. Keep an eye out for him.
South Carolina, Ole Miss. Joe didn't get the chance to talk about this game. A 7 o'clock
Love
start
this game.
tonight. South Carolina getting 12.5 points, and you take a look at Ole Miss, basically out of the picture, you probably, if you will, in the SEC championship and/or making the playoff. A 55.5 total. Joe, top 7 Ole Miss. Can they resurrect their season, continue to win football games, or do they meet their match here with an upset from South Carolina?
They dominated them last year. Again, did South Carolina have their Super Bowl? That was one of my best picks last week. The Gamecocks, again, I still think they could be within the number. I think they need to play a lower scoring game. Easier said than done. Do like Faison, anytime touchdown for South Carolina, plus 105. And I think Lenora Sellers a little bit deeper at plus 130. Hit pay dirt last weekend. They're going to need him to score. So both of those players, if you're taking South Carolina.
Chambliss 267.5 is his passing prop. Lenora Sellers at 179.5. We're about 10 minutes, Joe, from kickoff here. And that's where we're going to settle the score. So many options today to get after it. We'll be right back.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. You know, it's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today. Only on Sports Grid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on Sports Grid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire, Brian
Probably.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Clap,
why,
clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carton Show. Only on Sports Grid.
Let's focus on some of the big games kicking off in around 5 minutes now. None bigger, maybe, Joe, than Vanderbilt and Texas. Texas looking to stay in the playoff picture. You take a look at Vanderbilt looking to say, you know what? We're not just little brother anymore in the SEC. What just so happens right now, Joe, we got line movement opening up the show. Everybody's really bet that 3.5 range, but most people at 3s, depending where you're shopping at, 3.5s across the board now. Arch Manning will be the starting quarterback. And also, Joe, it lit a fire under the total. You see the 45.5s on that graphic, Joe? What if I would have told you right now 48.5 live?
Well, yeah, again, if you're Texas, you feel like you have the better passing attack. With Arch Manning, he displayed that with over 300 yards against Mississippi State. Does that continue now in the first half of this ball game to potentially allow Texas to build a lead? If you're back in Texas, yeah. I mean, I lean to Texas from the side perspective. It's not a best bet, though, because, again, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt can be live. Their defense has stepped up. They can run the football. And, again, if you're Texas, you have to shut down the run for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's averaging well over 170 yards per game on the ground. Every time they rush for over 200, Donnie, I keep telling you, undefeated, 5-0, and have won by 28.4 points per game. That is the recipe. Shut down the rushing attack, get Pavia into long third downs, then you can win it. But again, easier said than done. They couldn't do it with Kentucky and Mississippi State, two teams, by the way, that haven't won in the SEC.
I'm going Pavia under rushing yards, and I like Texas today. But also, it's one of those games, Joe, sometimes you say, okay, I'm going to bet Texas -3, but I'm actually rooting for Vanderbilt. Like, I like Vanderbilt's story. I like Vanderbilt's team. And also, something about Texas getting another loss in Sarkisian just saying, well, what do you want me to do here? What do you mean, what do you want me to do? You have the best
They
team
give
every
out
single year on there.
Lamborghinis to recruits. What do we want you to do? All these guys have no problem taking the $11 million, but then they want to cry when they lose games. Crazy.
3.5-point line now, as we said, sits there for Texas as the favorite. That game kicks off at 12 o'clock. 7:30 start tonight, Joe, from Rocky Top. It's Oklahoma taking on Tennessee. That line opened up at 3.5 early this week. We're under a field goal now. It's -2.5 at just about every outlet you're shopping at right now, and a total of 55.5. For me, Joe, it's Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins on Rocky Top, but again, I know you have a different opinion.
I mean, I see it differently, we used to say, and I do. Again, better bet for me is Oklahoma. Again, I keep saying Georgia, OU are my two best bets. I do like some other games today, but I'm expecting that defense for Oklahoma to rebound in a big way. I know it's on the road, but I have an experienced quarterback in Mateer with all the chips on. I think he sells out today. To me, that's the difference. John Mateer and the defense of Oklahoma going up against that front seven for Tennessee, that's a little suspect.
Yeah, it's a shame I don't think this season, Joe, we were getting the best of OU, because what I mean by that is, like, if Mateer never gets injured, who knows, then the sky will be the limit. Was playing really good football.
Right.
We'll see if he bounces back, but that schedule for Oklahoma, including today, is absolutely outrageous to finish the season. But I'll keep it simple in this one. It's Tennessee for me, and we'll be singing a Rocky Top all night long down in Knoxville. How about this next game, Joe? Penn State and Ohio State. When is the kickoff here? I don't know, 5 minutes or less at this point. It's Penn State and it's Ohio State. Early in the week, we had the 20.5s out there. They're no longer here. A couple minutes from kickoff, Joe, the buy-in is on Penn State. Now understand this, Penn State won their first few games of the season. Penn State's losses after that have been competitive, but this Ohio State team is really looking to sink their teeth into this Penn State offense. Joe, understand this. There's no friends in big business in college football. Ohio State would love nothing more to beat them 45-3 today.
And they shut down better offenses than Penn State this year. They shut down a Minnesota attack that was putting up points and had a good quarterback and has in Lindsey that's taken over. They shut down multiple teams, including Texas, to start the year. Shut down Washington and Damon Williams. I think it just comes down to better athletes, better scheme, and playing at home where they've been ultimately dominant over the past couple of years, to me, is the difference. And again, what is the identity of Penn State? Can't buy into Gruckenmeyer. Again, you're talking about a team in Ohio State that has covered or won 8 straight and covered 2 straight against the Nittany Lions. I don't see. Look, I would only go Ohio State, but I haven't taken this game from a side perspective on my slip. I did take Jeremiah Smith anytime touchdown, Jeremiah Smith yards as well.
By the way, you take a look, too, which would have been interesting. Let's just say Penn State never fired James Franklin and they didn't slip up the past couple weeks. You might be looking at a much better game at this point, but it just comes to me where I just think like Ryan Day is going to show Penn State like what the anticipation is over the next couple of years. New coach or whatever, we are going to hammer you today. And the fact of the matter is, I didn't look at the team total for Penn State, Joe, but what if I told you today 16.5?
That's high. Then I would lean to, I mean, for Penn State.
So if we're correlating it, then if it's 16.5, you think it's staying under. Like Ohio State should be in the 30s, right?
Well, then what you're saying at 16.5, that Ohio State's offense that's been averaging well over 30 points per game is getting held by a defense that couldn't contain Iowa. Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, that's the problem. I would take the over based off that team total for Penn State. I think it's a blowout.
Yep, only chance for me in that game is if you're looking at Penn State, they can get that ground game going. Otherwise, I think Ohio State wins that game by 3 touchdowns and goes away. The flip up, can we flip up Lisi's card real quick? There's my card on Ohio State. There you go, Joe.
Yeah, so I like Georgia. Again, I took a shot at SMU, Maryland, Cincinnati. What is that? The over in Cincinnati. There we go.
Get him, Joe. Get him.
There we go. There you go. Just take a look.
And there you go. Just take a look. That's what we do. Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi. We'll see you next Saturday for more college.
What have the Jays done all season long? And you've seen it, Kev, as a fan of the AL East. They get murdered or lose a heartbreaking game and come back and punch you in the face. They're not. It's like the old Jays team used to fold, and that's what I used to hate about them. These guys are different. They're like guys you go to war with. It's like, man, you're my buddy. Like, let's go. Like, their clubhouse dynamic, I've never seen a Blue Jay team where everyone gets along.
Game time decisions. only on Sports Grid.
Apparently, he's a pretty darn good defensive coordinator. The 49ers are decimated by injury. This guy's doing it again. Wade Phillips, Norv Turner, all these guys, there's a lot of great coordinators out there. I'm not so sure Mike McDaniel isn't a real good coordinator, a run game coordinator, a quarterback coach with the 49ers during some Super Bowl years. Maybe he's just not built to be a head coach.
In-game live, only on Sports Grid.
I think a divorce is coming. I don't think LeBron finishes the year with the LA Lakers. And the trump card he tried to play has backfired on him big time. And I'm here for all the smoke. I got my marshmallows, I got my skewers, I got the fireplace. I'm going to sit back, kicking my feet, and watch the LA dysfunction play out in real time.
The Craig Carton Show, only on Sports Grid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, you know, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.